Good morning to everyone. Great. We've just a few minutes back, we were discussing, with Lokesh and, with Mr. Sougat. We are at the years where we're seeing the kind of a innovation which probably, decades haven't seen it. We've been talking about a lot of technologies. And, if you talk about all these technologies, even including AI, which is being talked a lot. However, over the years, the actual maturity, the actual use cases pretty much happened in the last 5 to 10 years. But the speed of innovation has been tremendous. And with that, we have also got an ecosystem which has helped us, this propel the whole innovation for different industries. So today we are going to cover how these cutting-edge technologies going to, and at present helping many of the businesses. Mr. Sougat is bringing more from a health tech experience, and Mr. Lokesh is bringing HR tech experience. Our focuses are going to be not just these two very critical sort of businesses, but also we'll be talking about how these AI, ML, how these are helping us in the cutting edge technologies. So to start with, my first question is to Mr. Sougat. And we are having, you ran a various ventures in the past, out of which we all talk a lot about the business use cases. We talk about a lot of the innovations, the technology, but there's also an area of the policy, right? And how these policies are shaping this growth, this whole digital India sort of initiative. If you can please help us.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, a warm welcome to all of you all, and a very good morning. And my best wishes for this wonderful summit for ET's Tech Next. Very pertinent question you have put across, and no two ways about it, that policies are indeed a deciding factor in the kind of impact which technology actually has. In quite a few of the cases, so far, as we have seen, the policies have been changing as per the way the technology is unfolding itself, right? So if I say that, a consistency of policy which is existing, I would say no. And that shouldn't be the case also, because as a country, as a platform, as a user experience, right? The last decade has seen immense amount of change in the terms of technology usage is concerned, right? Now, but one thing remains very constant, the way technology has been expanding its reach across to the, I would say, micro-millennials, right, if I can use that word. And along with technology, one thing comes very, very hand in hand, and that is understanding of the impact of technology on that individual's life. Now, so today, to put up a glaring point, the best innovation which we have seen so far has been the innovation of technology in the terms of the digital payment is concerned, right? But more that has happened in the space, we also have been seeing that there are an immense amount of scams, right? Data leaks, privacy issues. Now, till the time, probably I would say, I was overhearing a part of a Congress summit which was happening in US when Mark Zuckerberg was being asked, and Sundar Pichai was being asked that, by a Republican candidate, that, are you aware that if I move from here to there, does Google know that I'm moving? I would say till the time Google is aware about that part, is still good, right? But when Google gets to know, or anybody else gets to know about what's in my wallet, and how much I'm having, and what's my dispensing style, those are serious issues, right? Two, we often don't get to see those news appearing in media, but since I have my business is expanded probably where we deal with a bunch of retailers in micro and tier 2 and tier 3 markets. What we are getting to see is that, I'll give you an example. There's some guy, he has been using a digital mechanism. He has a scan code. So what he has done, he has put up 2 scan codes on his counter. One accepts payments more than, I would say, yeah. So one which accepts payments more than, I would say, 2,000 rupees, and the other which accepts payments less than 2,000 rupees. There was some smart guy who actually had come up, put up a different sticker upon his scan code. And the guy saw for a day that, every time today whomsoever has made the payments, I'm not getting any notifications. And the entire money for that guy, it was roughly translating to about 40,000 rupees, but for him it's a fortune, right? It went to somebody else. Now, policies, I would say, would certainly need to be something which now impacts the user and not only just the person who is developing the technology. True. So I think that's my first intake which I wanted to share.
Very insightful. Coming to Mr. Lokesh, you have brought up an HR to a completely new, different dimension. This is quite a unique, and I remember, a lot of companies thinking about it while you're already out there with those advanced AI applications in the HR tech. While this question is more on the business models, we are seeing, as your company is doing differently, taken up this business model into a different level. How do you see this whole change in the business models, the legacy sort of models to a new business model? How this is reshaping the whole world? Can you please share your guide?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Very warm welcome and very good morning. How this is shaping the world, I think like Sougat put it, is actually reshaping every way that we think business, we think life, and we think transactions. A lot of things have transformed in the last 10 years itself from a digital perspective. And now AI has completely taken over, right? So, if you see all the principal conversations happening in the industry today for the last 10 or so months are around artificial intelligence. Business models are changing very, very rapidly. So, to just give you an example, and if you heard Sam Altman, last week when he was in that show, he almost talked about GPT-5. And we know generative AI as the text being, or generation of language. And that's what we have been doing for the last 10 months. But GPT-5 will actually have the first phygital AI. Phygital AI. Phygital AI is actually something which is going to take the business models and industry to the next level. Now, what is phygital AI? So, imagine you have a robo, which is AI programmed, and it can do both generation of language and generation of movements. So AI can command those kind of actions in day-to-day work as well, which was possibly happening in research and development or possibly happening in very advanced shop floors in manufacturing industry. But now that can happen even in regular work, and that's going to transform. So new work is emerging. And if you look at the business model, very simple business model that we have attacked, what we have done is we have converted a physical interview into an AI interview, and which gives you a job fit. So, the work has changed, right? So the whole working model of, let's say, recruitment industry, I see as changing in next 2 to 3 years. The way you recruit, the way you select, and the way you kind of hire people is going to completely change. And the way it is done today is very non-standardized, a lot of biases. So AI, on the contrary, can be used to remove biases, right? While it brings biases, but you can also use the same to remove the biases. So, biases of language, biases of color, biases of, any kind of biases that may actually be happening while that physical interview is going on, and that comes from the background of people. So a lot of new work is emerging. Uh, where do humans go? So in this whole value chain of work, what I see happening is decision making. So AI is supporting decisions. Now, even when phygital AI is actually going to be reality in few quarters, we are going to actually see decision enablement. So AI has two roles. One is, of course, generation, and second is decision enablement. I see human work shifting a lot more to decision, and AI enabling that decision. Wherever that decision is being taken, whether it is being taken in the finance department or in the HR department or even in education. So I see education changing big time, learning changing big time, because imagine a few months actually down the line, or at most 2 years down the line, what is the need to generate content and keep it for learning? Why do you have curriculum? Why I mean, you challenge, why do you need a curriculum when you can generate it just in time for the situation? So in a way, I sometimes visualize this, that we are taking education thousands of years behind into an Indian system which was query and question based. Right. It was never generated and created. It was, on the spot spoken and consumed. So that's what I see happening. So I see learning industry changing. I see recruitment industry changing. I see manufacturing industry, education changing, health, of course, Sougat was talking about. So a lot of changes that we see both in work. So where will the changes happen? Work itself. For decision enablement more. Workplaces, a lot of changes coming in, because I don't know whether it is a post-hybrid environment. I don't know what that means. But maybe a post-hybrid environment, and also the work culture itself and how the work is organized in organizations. So two things from a work organization perspective: agency theory. Entire industry today is built on agency theory, and as somebody as an agent to do some work for myself, and transactions theory, right? That I do a contract with you, and therefore I'll work for you. Both of them are going to transform. So that whole Adam Smith economic model is actually changing, because now I don't have a contract with a human. AI does work. So what kind of contract? And what kind of agency? It's an extension of me. There's no more agency, right? And similarly, there's no more transaction cost apart from what I pay as gas fee or whatever fee I'm paying on the platform. So a lot of things actually changing in the economic model itself. And there are a lot of associated technologies at work here. IoT, of course, IoT and AI put together is phygital, and that is going to be much more available. So these are some of the things that I feel. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Lokesh, one is that hiring stage, but I mean, as a complete stage, which is onboarding of the employees, to actually even at the hiring stage, there is a lot of technical evaluations are done. So these technical evaluations are also done through the AI. I mean, they are actually testing whether you have the enough technical skill to, let's say, operate a machinery, right? So and so on. Like there are simulations, more advanced simulations and AI-based simulations.
Absolutely. And this 30-minute conversation gives you a view on all behaviors and skills, for example.
True.
The thing that we do.
True.
What would have taken 3 weeks to schedule, reschedule, stuff like that can be done in 30 minutes True. Now. So that's how it works.
And so on, the onboarding, the verification, employee, everything step by step is all taken over.
Yeah. Yep.
That's great. So now coming back to Mr. Sougat, I mean, your extensive experience in policy making. So my next question is also around the same, for everyone to learn more, because one side innovation is equally important, and also the other side, the balance, how to bring the balance, how to bring the an ethical AI is also important. While this is one of the aspects, at the same time, innovation need to continue. It cannot stop. So how policy would help, and what are the steps, what are these initiatives that, as a different, in the ecosystem, there are different stakeholders. They all need to take their own steps to make everyone successful. And I feel world is actually looking at India now to take over, take charge, and deliver. So yesterday also, NVIDIA CEO said, our India is our front office of AI, right? So we have a lot of responsibility on our shoulder. So can you please share your views?
Sure. So first of all, Manish, when you speak of the world, the world is looking up to India. In fact, no better example globally than India than to present the kind of diversity which we have. So probably anything as a test case which goes well with India can go for the entire world, just for the diversity alone. Before I come to the policy part, I'll just kind of pick up one of the points, Lokesh, of yours. Physical AI, when you really speak of the hiring process, when you speak of education, it's so very important. And the policy actually is linked to that. I'll come to that point. At any given point of time, wherever we see a consistency in delivery and a consistency in the questionability, right? AI can be a great replacement for both these platforms. And probably after having taken and given interviews across in my life, and probably taken more than, I would say, some thousands, right? Even beyond the aspect of biasness of anything, right? Be it the gender, color, whatever. Even if that does not come across in your mind. As a human, the day you are taking the interview, there's something at your personal life. There's something at the background. There's something which has happened 5 minutes before. There's something which is scheduled to happen 10 minutes after. Everything plays around that point of time, right? Suddenly you will find sticking on to one guy for half an hour, right? And probably somebody who will come and you will want to have 5 minutes for him. So am I being judicious and judgmental and honest enough? That's where the place AI can play a magnificent role. And at the same point of time, the people who are actually being assessed and judged, right? Now they also get to understand that I am not being assessed by the virtue of probably what I look like, feel like, smell like, or anything for that matter, right? I am being assessed only by my competency. So that clears the clutter in a big way. So no two ways about it. Coming back to the policy part which you said and the innovation part. And this is where I would once again want to re-strengthen this thought which we were speaking in the morning. Both of when you say India as a global, I would say as a test tool, that's the best word I can use, to use in the form of the AI format. And when you say about the physical AI, in both of these situations, learnings are never complete. The process is self-generative, right? And that's why you use the word generative AI in many of the cases. And when you have to make it self-generative now, with due respect and everything to ChatGPT, right? So for example, ChatGPT has enabled the access points to many ways than one. But at the same point of time, it has also taken away a part of our own ability to learn things, right? Now, for example, when I do a note, when I do a post, or when I do an article, or when I do a format, there's a thought process which goes behind that. Text and people who are the tech professionals, the cornerstone of each one of them is the flowchart framework. And what is the flowchart framework? It's the logical thinking, right? The moment you hand over the logical thinking to somebody else and you're only responsible only for the output, what has happened is that you've applied your mind less, right? So while the output is great, but the people who are responsible for the output, that has taken up a mass part away. So policies at the same point of time, I would say, should actually deter this part in a many ways than one, where while you make use as an enabler, but it should take away the core knowledge domain of the individual, because that will lead to a disaster. Today we are finding it great because still we are within a age bracket where the mix and match is helping the workflow. Look about another 15, 20 years from now, right? When the entire dependency will be on the other side of the story. This mix and match is, if you ask somebody a question, you will find a robot in front of you who has no information fed in. He has no answer in front of you. That's physical, right? So it's good, it's scary, both at the same point of time. So policies has to be shaped in such a way which enables the life of both of the segments and balances it in a proper way. Otherwise, it's going to be a bit tricky situation in the times to come.
Sure. I can imagine the kind of scariest moment when, these OpenAI or this generative AI, putting up some, creating a content as sort of, let's assume, a communication required, And on the other side, the receiver has also put in an AI, So AI talking between each other and humans don't know what's happening. So yeah, while we did talk about, on the policy, now coming back to every organization, the ultimate goal of every organization is to, be profitable, be excellent in the operations, and at the same time, a customer centricity, as you talked about. So how do you see this customer experience is evolving, and how at the same time we are able to generate and looking at the bottom line of the organization? So yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think definitely. So there is no two questions about AI enabling productivity, quality. So if you really see what AI is so far, it's sorry. Is this okay? Is this okay? So if you really see what AI is doing is so far AI is nothing but advanced statistics. Let me put it this way. So it's based on regression. Regression progressed into LLM, large language models. Large language models progressed to what we have AI as of today. So if we see back 50 years ago, everything in organization was driven by statistical quality control. So it was about that, right? And that whole Toyota revolution was essentially about that. So imagine what we could do as humans. AI would be able to do maybe 1,000,000 times, 1,000 times, I don't know, but definitely lakhs or millions, better and faster. So productivity and speed and quality. So there are three drivers which are critical to any organization and its business is speed, quality, and at what cost you are doing it. So all three, massive. So for example, this Konverz.ai, you reduce the cost by 50% straight away. So and in a few years, I don't know what will happen. But more important than that is how are we, so, who are we serving? So if you look at the economic ecosystem is, you work in one organization, you in some other, and I in some other. And we have an economic model which is running, which is feeding the money in our pockets, and we exchange it for services and goods, correct? Now, let's say if I have 30% less employment, what happens? So it's actually a chaos, because I don't now have money to pay you, but on the other hand, of course, AI is bringing down the cost. So it's a lot more complex than it looks. So productivity for what? So if you look at the entire India use case or India's stack of technology and the way Indian economics runs on some of the things like IoT and automation and robotization is because the human is still cheaper than, human labor is still cheaper than the technical or the automation or whatever. And most of us are, I'm sure, in the information technology industry, so we understand why we don't make investments. So productivity for what is what we'll definitely ask to question. And I think ultimately work is about just three flows. There is a work which is flowing and making an end outcome happening. There is an information which is flowing on top of that, which is helping people decide what to do and what not to do. Work and information can be completely taken care by AI. Completely, right? I mean, in the next 2 to 3 years, workflows and AI can actually manage the whole organization. So it's about decisions. So which means there's a lot of human bandwidth now available in terms of the mental free time. And I think it's time that we look at productivity from availability of human time rather than profitability. I mean, this is a paradigm shift. how do I see productivity and quality as availability of human time for higher order work? Then look at it as money and productivity. And I just draw a leaf from what Sougat was saying, that free time. And I think this is the right time, and there's a lot of parallel things happening in the society. And I don't know how many of us observe there's almost a consciousness revolution which is also underway. So I see humans should stop being intelligent now. Grow wisdom. There's a better thing to do. Become wise. Leave the intelligence to the machines. Intelligence is not going to help us 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years down the line. Grow wisdom. And wisdom can be grown by a lot of means which are now available. So how do we move the whole paradigm in a very different direction is what AI is definitely going to make people think, enable, and the new generation, which is already post overuse of technology generation. I'm sure there are a lot of new things which are going to emerge there. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Lokesh, for the words of wisdom. And coming to Mr. Sougat, a little while ago we were talking about India being the center as a hub for the innovation. Well, the innovations are is not just a responsibility of the large enterprises or medium enterprises, but it's a lot of innovation is coming from the startups. I mean, we had a startup Mahakumbh last 3 days, headed by Mr. Modi as well, and 15,000 crore probably being put in for the startup ecosystem. That's one of the way of propelling the growth around that and the innovation. While there are also one of these initiatives, but at the same time there are a lot of practical level challenges and resource crunch, and there are a lot of challenges. So would you like to please highlight your views on this whole challenges, resources, and how we...
Sure, Manish. So once again, what picking a cue of what just Lokesh mentioned some time back, speed, time, and quality. Essentially, from a business operative point of view, there are 3 dimensions, which is price, as we call it time, and we call it quality. Now, the beauty is that all 3 are important, but all 3 cannot be managed at the same point of time. Because the moment you emphasize upon one, you have to compromise upon the other 2. There's no 2 ways about it, right? So the smart work is the work of a balancer. And that's where startups come into play in a big way. The reason because for any large organizations to take up a call with the entire infrastructure, people, and a fixed capex is very difficult. For a startup at a lean, mean, and easy stage, right, it's very easy for them, right? Number one. Number 2, for larger organizations, when they speak of technology enablement, right? So out of probably 10 products which they have, the new technology is one of the things which they're working on. And the word is working on, right? For a startup, what they're working on is the lead product. So the focus for a startup is way different than probably the focus of a larger organization would be. And that's where a startup's ability to scale up and make the product much more customizable, that becomes important. But having said that, I think a larger platform or a larger tool has to come in place where this startups, as you said, when you spoke of startups Mahakumbh, I mean, from that Mahakumbh, some tool has to emerge, not only from this Mahakumbh, from any startup sector. Today, if I say, do we know which startups are doing what? There's no startup yellow page, right?
No marketplace for startups.
Exactly. So if I have to search and Google and figure out, I have probably one place listing, I would not go to NASCOM every point of time, right? At the same point of time, there are multiple startups whose byproduct of one or end product of one is the input of another. So instead of everybody walking in silos, there has to be a mechanism where probably a collaborative effort of bringing the entire input-output mechanism together, which can also be a platform for partner accessible growth, and which can lead to a very quick resource mobilization point of time, and that will also, at the same point of time, bring down the costs, both from GTM and manpower resource in a big way. And I think that's primarily the point.
That's great. So, Mr. Lokesh, coming to building these platforms, startup do build at a pilot stage to bring it to a certain level so that it's a market table. But it also requires probably 50 or more % work to keep sustaining that product. It requires to be matured even more with the time. As we're seeing with the innovation, a lot of things are changing. So the product, which startup ecosystems have a tough time doing this. More than that, we are also doing a lot of these technological innovations. For example, these models are being built on AWS as a partner.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of foundation classes that companies are using to further deploy. And we are talking about the generative AI, which is also pumping a lot of code into the system. How the biggest challenge then comes around the security and privacy of the user data. If you would like to please share some.
Never before. Like Sougat earlier on said that data is, a lot of people are saying data is new oil in this country as well. So it's not just by chance that they say that. It actually is the new oil, and it helps them generate a lot of money. So regulations are very important. So I think DPDP is a good directional movement. And it actually is very good. So because we are into the AI space, and what the minister also said last month, when AI companies are supposed to register and what they are doing, so stuff like that. I think that is a phenomenal thing to do, to regulate it early on, particularly in the case of AI, which we didn't do in the case of digital media and social media and all of that. So very, very crucial. Now, there is two kinds of things. One is, of course, the regulation. The second is the ethics. So regulation will naturally, help you follow a certain level of ethics, but the technology is too broad to regulate. It's too big to regulate, and there has to be new kinds of business code written. So business code itself, certain business codes which got written in 17th and 18th century now need to be challenged. How do we weave in ethics into the very element of business that doesn't lead to wars, that doesn't lead to the inflicting bad stuff to the people. So we need to change that business code itself, and how do we make businesses fundamentally more ethical? So we have to find new models there. So regulation, ethics, and government, of course, has a huge role to play, but sometimes government cannot play a role. It's boundaryless. So, for example, cryptocurrencies cannot. In your rarest of the thought, you cannot regulate it. So whoever is saying that they can, they are actually bluffing you. So similarly, AI, how will you? It's proliferating at such a pace, so you cannot. So there has to be new business codes, and I think big tech has a big role to play, but unfortunately, so far, at least in 50 years of what I have seen, I'm not 50 though, but in last, since the 70s, 80s, since tech started becoming big, I have not seen some of those big tech to be as responsible as they claim. The trust and safety part. That's ethics, that's like business ethics, that's not governed by regulation. So this trust and safety function, how does it become? It started driving a completely different agenda in big tech, and we know all of that, what is happening in the US in the last decade or so. It's ruined people. So how do we build the right kind of trust and safety system which doesn't become too leftist, just become too rightist? Exactly. It stays right in the center. Exactly. So,
Exactly. Every business needs to be responsible. Otherwise, it's very clear that business will fall. So it's very understood. I'm not sure how we are running on the time. I'm getting a no sign. So do we have a time for Q&A? Not even Q&A. Okay. But yeah, it was quite an insightful, conversations from Mr. Sougat and Mr. Lokesh. Thank you so much for sharing such detail. Thank you so much.